I'm going to take the opportunity to sort of clarify actually something that I myself said, which is also related to some of the comments that have been made before me. When I say that we, let me be very clear what I mean by the word we. When I say we should support Iranian feminists, student radicals, democratic dissidents, intellectuals, and the like, not to mention Iranian workers. If you're interested in the situation of Iranian workers, by the way, you might want to check out the current issue of the Middle East Report, MARIP, which has an outstanding article, unfortunately not available online, although I have a PDF of it. If anybody wants to email me, I'd be happy to share it with them, but you can just find the magazine on a newsstand somewhere in Chicago. But it's just an extraordinary situation that the workers' struggle in Iran over the last year and a half since Ahmadinejad took power has become more precarious. There's been a paroxysm of repression, crushing workers' demonstrations, sacking and imprisoning the leader of the Iranian bus drivers union. It's a very sad story. It's been virtually completely invisible in the left-wing press. Nobody talks about it. This is the first article, except for a couple of very obscure sectarian magazines in Britain, in the English language. This is it. So anyway, the point is, when I say we should be in solidarity with Iranian feminists, student protesters, dissident intellectuals, and trade unionists, I do not mean the United States. I mean we on the internationalist left, activists, people, however you want to describe it, people of conscience, people who who feel that they have a stake in these things. To touch on something that Adam said, I very much like what Adam was saying about Venezuela, that the internet, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Central America Solidarity movement of the 80s. In the tradition of internationalism in the left, we feel that struggles overseas are our struggles. So what's happening in Venezuela today, the debates about what kind of a society Venezuela is going to have, what kind of contours the Bolivarian revolution is going to have, those are debates in which we have a stake, in which our participation is not only vital, it's actually being requested. When the Zapatista uprising took place in the mid-1990s in Chiapas, Mexico, the presence of international solidarity activists was not only vital to that struggle, it was requested by the Zapatistas themselves. They asked international activists to come to Chiapas to see the human rights situation, to participate in dialogues, to write about them, to make documentary films about them. In Central America, we were asked by our comrades in the FMLN in El Salvador to raise money for them, to bring them on speaking tours of the U.S., to write books and articles about them, to spread the word about their struggles. That's what I'm talking about with Iran. If you ask Iranian progressives, Iranian feminists, Iranian dissidents, what they want, they say, we do not want, read what Shirin Ebadi says about this. I interviewed her for Open Democracy. You can find it on the magazine. I put that question directly to her because there's a lot of confusion about this elementary distinction amongst many leftists in the West. They think, well, we non-Iranians, outsiders, have no role to play in the Iranian struggle because, after all, we come from the imperialist world. Well, that's interesting. Why don't we say that? Why didn't we say that about El Salvador in the 1980s? Why don't we say that about Venezuela or Palestine right now? Of course, we, meaning leftist internationalists, have a role to play in struggles all over the world. What you do is you ask people struggling what we can do for you. How can we help your struggle?
It's time.
Just very quickly on that point. If you ask Shirin Ebadi, as I did, what can activists and supporters of human rights in the West do to support the struggle for human rights in Iran? She said, we do not want the support of Washington or the Pentagon or neoconservative think tanks. In fact, if you look at the $85 million that the State Department made available for the Iranian democratic movement, so-called, it met with a resounding thud in Iran. Iranian activists don't want a dime of it. It's been sitting collecting dust. It's poison. What they do want is the support of what they call global civil society, intellectuals, human rights organizations, people, in other words, like those of us in this room tonight. That's a very important distinction that I think needs to be emphasized.